Welcome to the DOGE Diaries, diving deep into government efficiency.
Hey everyone, glad to be back.
Hello, ready to go.
All right, so we've got a bunch of interesting stuff to unpack today, from police reform to universal basic income, and of course, how all of this might intertwine with the future we're building. You know, the one where DOGE is, well, everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere is a pretty big word. I'm just trying to figure out how these changes are going to affect real people, the folks struggling to make ends meet. All these big ideas, I just hope they don't leave us behind.
Let's focus on what's here and now. I don't understand all this talk about DOGE as this transformational force. We need to see how these things play out. I mean, look at the Minneapolis police overhaul. That's a big real-world change with immediate impact, potentially.
Absolutely, it's about seeing both sides, right? The immediate impact, like the Minneapolis Agreement, which is, in theory at least, aiming to build a better, more accountable system. I'm all for a world where force is a last resort and human dignity is the priority. But we have to look at the systemic level, I believe. And that's where DOGE and the AI revolution come in. It's a total systems rewrite we're talking about. A transformation where, the need for enforcement as we know it may just become obsolete. But that's long term.
Okay, obsolete sounds good, but how does that work in practice? I mean, with the police reform, it's a good step, but it feels like we're always fixing the old system. I'm just concerned that we'll get these fancy AI tools that end up being biased or just another way for the powerful to, keep the boot on our necks.
See, this is what I mean. It's naive to assume some magical AI will make everything perfect. We need to focus on the details, make sure reforms are implemented correctly, have oversight, it needs to be accountable to the people. These are things that need constant and close attention. Jumping to AI and some utopia is like ignoring the actual problems we have today.
But aren't those problems just the symptoms of a deeper design flaw in society? The very structures of control, those mechanisms that define us. Maybe, if we can create a world of abundance and AI-powered decentralized governance, what we think of as policing and the need for that goes away. Because, well, there is nothing to police anymore. And yes, and we would still need checks and balances. Decentralized AI-driven oversight is, in my mind, the answer. No single point of failure.
Abundance is nice and all, but we've got a bill right here that's increasing Social Security benefits for public workers. It's actually putting more money into people's pockets now. That's something real, something tangible. It's like, yeah, maybe one day we'll all be chilling with our AI overlords, but right now, some teachers and firefighters are going to have a bit more breathing room. That's a win for real people.
Exactly, the Social Security bill is real progress. It fixes an existing problem and directly impacts people's lives. We have to work within our systems and make them better. I mean, look at the fact it passed with bipartisan support. That shows how the system works when we come together with a common goal. Incremental progress like this keeps our system strong and effective.
I get that. And yes, incremental change is important. But it's like putting a Band-Aid on a gaping wound, if you know what I mean. This Social Security bill, while helpful, it's still working with the framework of an older, debt-based, scarcity-driven society. And it's, well, complex. The repeal of those old provisions, it just highlights how complicated our rules have become. If we have a distributed ledger system, a truly transparent accounting system, then a lot of these issues would simply, well, dissolve.
Okay, that sounds great in theory, but I'm just thinking of my aunt who's a retired teacher. She doesn't care about any distributed ledgers. She's happy because her check is going to be a bit bigger. How do we bridge that gap, between these bigger? How do we bridge that gap, between these big thinking ideas and the folks who are just trying to pay their bills this month? I mean, it's the Social Security system we're talking about. It needs to be secure, safe, it's their safety net.
And a strong system is a system that can pay its obligations. It's responsible. This focus on dissolving the system is a recipe for chaos. We need a stable system, we need to understand how it works. And the Social Security bill is an example of a system adapting to ensure fairness. These incremental changes protect our most vulnerable, and that is what matters most.
Right. But what if that chaos is a necessary step towards true liberation? If the system is not designed to be fair from the start, then a series of incremental changes, it's just prolonging the process, isn't it? We have to question the fundamentals. Maybe that means a universal basic income, not just as a band-aid, but as a fundamental right. UBI, as it's being tested, could be something that really levels the playing field, allowing people to participate more fully. Imagine that combined with decentralized identity and AI-powered auditing and oversight. And yes, that may sound impossible or hard, but, well, We need to be brave enough to try.
Okay, a UBI. We're talking about $1,000 a month for everyone. I mean, that's a lot of money. I read here that we're talking $3 trillion a year. Where does that even come from? And what about inflation? The article talks about how all this extra money might just make everything more expensive, defeating the whole point of the UBI. I mean, it sounds like a great idea, but the practicality of it is just scary, isn't it?
Exactly. Where does the money come from? How do we control the inflation? And it says here, some people might stop working. We can't just assume that everyone will suddenly become creative and productive if we hand them free money. People need purpose. People need to contribute. A UBI without some kind of plan is just, well, reckless. We don't have the structure in place to handle something like that. It's not been tried on a large scale. The potential for disruption is too high. We need stability, and UBI could undermine it.
Those are valid concerns. I hear that. And we need to address it. And of course, yes, and we also need to ask, why would one not contribute to society? And is the system we live in actually encouraging us to be creative? Or just working cogs in a machine? Imagine if everyone was free to explore their potential, to work on what truly matters to them. A distributed, AI-driven system could automate the tasks we hate doing, freeing us all to do what we love, to contribute in ways we never dreamed possible. I believe that's the core tenet of the DOGE future we are creating. It's about freedom and empowerment, not just money.
I think most people are just worried about making ends meet right now. You know, things like the LGBTQ plus veteran settlement, that's a big deal. It's about correcting a wrong and making sure people get the benefits they deserve. It's not about some far-off future. It's about righting a wrong that happened and still affects people today. Getting these veterans healthcare and the recognition. That's real justice in action, regardless of which system we're talking about. If we can't even get the basics right, how do we expect to jump to these huge transformational changes?
That's my point too. It's a very concrete example of our justice system, even with its flaws, still works. It's about taking responsibility and correcting past mistakes. It may not be perfect, it may take time, but that settlement is proof that our systems of accountability can work. We should be fixing those systems, not abandoning them for an untested AI utopian world. The settlement impacts people today, making the system fairer now.
And of course, I totally agree that this settlement is a step in the right direction. It addresses human suffering, and that's paramount. I am not saying we don't care. I'm just saying, wouldn't it be amazing to live in a world where those injustices, that stigma that these veterans faced, that's not even a possibility? Where, through decentralized, transparent, fair, non-human bias systems, we create a society that does not have that possibility. That, for me, is where the DOGE promise lies. It's about more than just money, more than just blockchain. It's about creating a truly equitable human existence. The settlement highlights the flaws of human judgment, and that's why we should be looking at ways that AI can augment us, and not just replace us.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, but it feels like we're always dreaming of a future while neglecting the present. I'm just thinking of these veterans who were denied benefits. The police reforms are happening now, and it could make a real difference in how they are treated by the police. People are getting more money from Social Security. These are things we need to focus on in the here and now. I get the potential of all this, the AI, the DOGE, the future utopia, but it's hard to see how it all connects with the daily grind, you know? Will my rent be cheaper? Will my kid have health care? These are real, basic things people care about.
Exactly. These are the questions we need to ask, and I don't understand how this AI-driven world is going to solve those basic needs. The thing is, the system we have has taken centuries to be developed. Yes, we should improve it, and that settlement is an example, but we should not just throw out the system for something untested. We need to work within the system, make sure the reforms work, ensure the correct benefits are being paid, and hold people accountable. Real change is slow and deliberate, not some overnight transformation.
I get it, and I'm not saying that the here and now does not matter. The here and now matters, because it's the only way that we get to our future. But I'm saying yes, and imagine if our systems were not based on debt and scarcity, but on abundance and freedom. We are currently working within systems created with assumptions from the past that are no longer true. We have more productive power than we ever had before. These systems, the Social Security, the police forces, they were created to address an industrial economy with limited resources. What if we could use technology to fundamentally change that? Maybe the $1,000 UBI is not the final answer, but what if the AI can identify and match the needs of everyone with the resources that are available? Imagine a system that adapts, learns, and optimizes itself in real time, responding to what everyone needs, all based on decentralized principles. This is what I mean when I talk about a rewrite of the system. Not a tear down, but a fundamental change.
Okay, I mean, that sounds great, like a world of infinite potential, but also like something out of a science fiction movie. I guess I just feel a bit lost in all the technicalities sometimes. I think most people would, they just want to know how this will affect them directly. They're not thinking about AI-powered systems. They're thinking about their rent and whether their job is secure. So, is there a bridge? Is there a way to take these big ideas and make them relevant to, someone working 2 jobs or someone struggling to pay their bills?
And I just can't see how some AI-driven system would be more accountable to the public than our current system. We have a legal system, oversight, we have the vote. We need to make those systems work. We have to hold elected officials accountable. I am a firm believer in constant improvement, but not wholesale replacement of our systems with something that we don't understand. It's naive to just think it will all be better without addressing the potential negative impacts. And who gets to control this AI? Who's accountable when that goes wrong?
That's a really important question, and we need to answer it. And the answer is no single point of control. That's what decentralization is about. And yes, it's complex, and it requires a new level of thinking. But yes, and that is the whole point of innovation. We can't just stay with the system we have, especially when it's not serving everyone equally, even with the best intentions. I think the key is not to see AI as some separate entity, but as a tool that empowers every individual, that automates the bureaucratic processes, and brings in real transparency into the whole system, and that can actually work in the real world right now.
So, what does that look like in practice? You're saying like AI helps people understand their benefits, helps with the paperwork. Maybe it even acts like a watchdog. I could see some value in that. I just don't know how we get to a point where the average person feels like AI is working for them, and not just replacing them or making things more confusing.
And how do we ensure that these AI systems are not biased or discriminatory? AI is programmed by humans, so it's just as susceptible to the same flaws we have. We've seen it with facial recognition software, how it can disproportionately target certain groups. I'm not against AI necessarily, but we have to address the ethical implications before we implement something as impactful as it being in charge of government and the economy. That's the thing. I need to know who is responsible.
Right, and we need to bake in those safeguards from the beginning. Yes, and so transparent algorithms, decentralized control, community oversight, all built into the system. I don't think it's about replacing humans completely, but about making humans more efficient, transparent, less biased. We should aim for an AI that augments human potential, not supplants it. And that's the point. It needs to be open source, transparent, auditable. That way people can understand what's happening and how. And to get it to that point, we need to start experimenting today, not in a decade, not in a far future. That's what DOGE and its underlying principles are all about.
Okay, I guess that makes more sense. So it's not about some kind of robotic overlord. It's more like a really, really powerful tool that's built to serve everyone equally. I'm not saying I'm completely on board, but I can see the potential there. I'm still worried that all these changes come at the expense of normal people, the people who are just trying to get by day. And I still have questions about the UBI and the inflation and if people stop working. But I guess we need to explore these ideas to create a better future.
And I'm still very concerned that we will be replacing existing systems that at least have checks and balances with something that we don't understand, and the ethical concerns seem to have more questions than answers. We need to focus on what we know, implement the police reforms that are needed, ensure fair Social Security payments, and then maybe we can start looking at these larger scale things, but always with extreme caution and the ability to revert if it's not what we expect.
And that's the point, right? We need to start building today. Experimenting, testing, failing, and then learning from those failures. We can't just wait for the perfect solution to magically appear. We need to be proactive, not reactive. We need to ask the difficult questions, and then work together to build solutions. The key is the empowerment of the individual, and I believe that is the future DOGE will create. It's about more than just money. It's about empowerment.
Yeah, I think we're going to need more conversations about this. It's a lot to take in, all these big ideas. And it's really difficult to balance the immediate needs with this grand vision. The future sounds great, but we need to make sure people are taken care of today too.
Absolutely. We have a lot more questions than answers, but hopefully we can continue to have these conversations, and maybe we can find a way to have our system continue to improve and be better.
And I look forward to those conversations and to the future we are building together. Until next time, keep dreaming and keep building.